In a post-apocalyptic world, several kids play happily while being watched by a guard. Suddenly, a loud noise comes from the speakers, and the children rush into a large building. They're strapped into chairs, and strange gadgets are placed on their heads. The device emits a loud sound, making the children scream. Meanwhile, a man lurks in the shadows, watching the events unfold. A massive shockwave erupts from the screams, concentrating into a powerful energy blast that strikes a tower. Elsewhere, a boy named Jake wakes up suddenly, startled by an earthquake. His mother, Lori, enters his bedroom and invites him to breakfast. Jake has been having strange nightmares about a man in black attacking a tower. If the man succeeds, fire and destruction will consume Earth. After each dream, Jake sketches what he sees and adds it to his growing collection on his bedroom wall. Shortly after, he shares his dreams with Lori and his stepfather, Lon, but they dismiss them. One day at school, a bully steals Jake's notepad. Angry, Jake punches the bully, demanding his book back. A teacher intervenes and sends Jake home. Later, Jake meets with a therapist who dismisses his dreams as harmless. He believes Jake is struggling with unresolved trauma from his father's death in a fire the previous year. On his way home, Jake sees a man adjusting his face, reminding him of the creatures from his nightmares, beings called the Tahin, who disguise themselves in human skin suits. Frightened, he rushes onto a bus. A homeless man mutters about the apocalypse, but Jake ignores him and hurries home. Lori and Lon argue about Jake's condition but stop when he enters. Lori tells him about a special school that helps kids like him, but Jake refuses to go. That night, feeling guilty for stressing his mother, Jake looks at an old newspaper clipping about his father's death. Jake removes his sketches from the wall and hides them, trying to convince himself his visions are just dreams. However, as soon as he falls asleep, another vision begins. He sees the man in black burn a man alive after destroying a village. Elsewhere, a warrior named Roland reports to his father, Stephen, that they have failed their mission. Suddenly, they hear something approaching. They stand back to back. The man in black appears and commands Stephen to stop breathing. Roland watches in horror as his father dies. The man in black tells Roland that, while his magic doesn't work on him now, one day it will. Jake wakes up from the vision and immediately sketches Roland, the gunslinger, along with an old house. He uploads the drawing online, hoping someone will recognize it. Meanwhile, the therapist's assistants arrive to take Jake to the clinic. He notices a scar on one man's neck and realizes they are the same creatures from his nightmares. He warns his parents, but they don't believe him. Just then, Jake receives an alert. Someone online has identified the house from his drawings. He hugs his mother, then gathers his sketches into a backpack. He escapes through the window. The staff quickly realizes his plan and orders the man to chase after him. Jake runs through the streets, misdirecting them into the subway before making his way to the house. He climbs in through a window and explores the abandoned house. Suddenly, he hears an automated voice instructing him to enter a destination. Without thinking, he types the numbers from his visions. A portal opens on the other wall, amazing Jake. He tosses a shoe through to test it. As he moves closer, the floor collapses and a monstrous creature made of wood attacks him. Jake shouts for it to let go, and it crumbles into pieces. Grabbing his backpack, he rushes through the portal. He lands in a desert-like world with multiple moons. Stunned by the sight, he doesn't panic when the portal closes behind him. Meanwhile, the man in black, Walter, is real. He is a powerful sorcerer living in this post-apocalyptic world, known as Midworld. He learns that someone unauthorized has entered through the portal and orders his men to investigate. Elsewhere, Jake continues walking. He spots a glowing reflection in the distance and moves toward it. He finds a small fire. Suddenly, a gun presses against his head. Jake slowly turns and recognizes the man holding it, Roland, the gunslinger. Suspicious, Roland believes Walter sent Jake to lure him out. He holds Jake over a cliff, threatening to drop him unless he talks. Jake quickly explains everything. He shows Roland his sketches, including one of Walter's base. Realizing Jake might be telling the truth, Roland prepares for a journey to Walter's headquarters. He tells Jake to get ready. There are no more gunslingers left. Walter eliminated them all. Meanwhile, Walter arrives on Earth and enters the house with the portal. Walter finds a shard of wood with blood on it and takes it to the Tahin. One of them tastes the blood and confirms it belongs to a young human boy with pure power. Walter realizes the boy is psychic, as his scream executed the house demon, the creature that attacked Jake earlier. Walter then tracks down the clinic attendants who lost Jake. They give him Jake's information, but Walter, unimpressed, commands them to kill each other. He casually tells the onlookers to relax and enjoy the show. Back in Midworld, Jake asks about the fight he saw in his visions. Roland explains that it was his last battle, the day he lost his father, Stephen, after Walter suffocated him. Jake then draws a circle in the dirt, dividing it into sections with a stick in the center. He thinks it's useless, but Roland explains that it represents the universe. The stick in the middle is the Dark Tower, a source of power that keeps the universe and all worlds safe. If the tower falls, dark beings will enter and bring death and destruction. That night, Jake wakes up, but Roland tells him to sleep. They have a long day ahead. Jake is drawn into a clearing where he finds his father. His father explains that while he died on Earth, he is alive in this world. He stretches out his hand, urging Jake to come home. At the same time, Roland wakes from a nightmare in which Walter warns him that anyone who walks with him will die. Realizing Jake is gone, Roland rushes to find him. Just as Jake is about to take his father's hand, Roland shoots, revealing the man to be a monstrous, red-skinned creature. The demon tries to take Steven's form again, but Roland keeps shooting. He explains to Jake that the demon took his father's shape because it sensed his grief. Meanwhile, on Earth, only to find Walter casually making dinner in their kitchen. Lon, furious, tries to attack him. Walter commands Lon to stop breathing, and he collapses lifelessly onto the floor. Walter enters Jake's room and accesses Laurie's memories, searching for Jake's drawings. He realizes Jake is special and mocks Laurie, taunting her for failing as a mother, dismissing her son's visions, and trying to send him to a psychiatric hospital. Walter returns to his base and shares what he has learned with his two trusted assistants. He now knows Jake is in Midworld and looking for Roland. Walter orders his men to track Jake down, believing the boy's psychic power alone is strong enough to bring down the Dark Tower. Meanwhile, Roland and Jake finally reach a small village. Roland demands to see the most powerful seer and healer in the village. A woman named Era steps forward and examines Roland's wound from the monster attack. Unfortunately, the wound isn't healing as quickly as he expected. It's spreading. Roland then shows Era Walter's base and asks where it is. She speaks with Jake, claiming his power is greater than anything she has ever seen. Jake is excited to hear Era's voice in his head and shares his visions with her. Era explains that Walter's base is a 6-month journey on foot. However, Jake realizes Walter must have a portal on Earth that could take them directly to the base. That evening, several villagers express concerns about using the portal, fearing it will alert the Taheen. But Roland insists that as long as darkness exists, the village will never be safe. Eventually, the village leader and his men prepare the portal. Unfortunately, opening it immediately draws the Taheen into the village. They attack, cutting off the power supply, which weakens the portal. Roland rushes to help, asking Jake to hide while he protects a family. Elsewhere, Walter watches the attack through a vision globe. Spotting Jake, he orders the Taheen to capture him. One of them kidnaps Jake, while Roland, weakened by the monster's poison, struggles to stay conscious. However, he focuses his energy and hears Jake being dragged into a field. He fires a perfect shot, killing the attacker. As the portal stabilizes, Roland and Jake make it through. Era warns Jake not to use his power, as it can be tracked. Now on Earth, their first priority is getting Roland to a hospital. He's impressed by how quickly modern medicine works, but when told he must stay overnight, he removes the IVs and asks Jake to get his guns. Jake leads Roland into the streets, where they spot a man rambling about the apocalypse. Jake recognizes him as one of Walter's kidnapped victims. Using his telepathic abilities, he links with the man and learns his home location. However, before tracking Walter, Jake insists on checking on his mother. At his apartment, Jake rushes inside with Roland close behind. He finds Lon's lifeless body and then discovers a burn mark on the bedroom floor. Laurie has been incinerated. Overcome with grief, Jake uses his power to relive the moment. Walter has left a chilling message on the wall. Roland, sensing Jake's pain, warns him not to use his abilities to avoid detection. He carries Jake onto the roof, where Jake gives him the location of Walter's base. Despite his heartbreak, Jake continues forward. Determined to fight Walter, Roland begins training Jake in combat. They visit a weapons store to gather ammunition. As Jake exits, Roland hears Walter calling his name. He fires his gun, but Walter is only projecting himself through a vision globe. The gunshot triggers the store's security system, locking Jake outside. Roland challenges Walter to face him in person instead of hiding behind magic. Meanwhile, outside, Jake is spotted by Taheen scouts. He is kidnapped and calls out to Roland for help. Roland hears him through his enhanced senses, but so does Walter, who immediately ends his projection to capture Jake himself. Walter and his assistants take Jake to their operating base, where a massive machine stands ready. Walter orders the Taheen to prepare for Roland's arrival and sarcastically wishes them a happy apocalypse. Roland infiltrates the base, eliminating the Taheen one by one. Though outnumbered, he uses his exceptional hearing to locate and shoot each enemy with precision. Meanwhile, Jake is strapped to the machine. He resists, but Walter provokes him by bringing up Laurie's death. Enraged, Jake's power surges, fueling the machine and damaging the Dark Tower. Just as Roland reaches Midworld, Walter's assistant ambushes him. After a fierce battle, Roland overpowers and kills him. The world begins to crumble. Jake's power is tearing down the Dark Tower, allowing darkness to creep into Earth. The machine technician notices Jake keeping the portal open, which could give Roland an advantage. Realizing this, Walter steps out of the control room and confronts Roland directly. Roland fires, but Walter deflects the bullets with magic. He attacks Roland with glass shards, cutting his hands and limiting his ability to fight. He then pummels Roland with a metal rod and crushes him under cement blocks. Confident in his victory, Walter prepares to burn Roland alive. Jake, refusing to give up, telepathically reaches out to Roland. He recites the Gunslingers mantra. I do not aim with my hand. He who aims with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. I aim with my eye. I do not shoot with my hand. He who shoots with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. I shoot with my mind. I do not kill with my gun. He who kills with his gun has forgotten the face of his father. I kill with my heart. Hearing Jake's voice, Roland gathers his strength. He fires 2 bullets. They collide in midair, redirecting one straight into Walter's heart. Roland follows up with multiple shots, finally killing Walter with a bullet to the head. His last shot destroys the machine, saving the Dark Tower and restoring order. The chaos on Earth ceases. Roland and Jake walk through the streets, watching as survivors receive aid. Roland tells Jake he must leave, but to Jake's surprise, he invites him to come along. He explains that Jake has nothing left tying him to Earth, and the world out there needs him. Excited, Jake agrees. Roland smiles and calls him a gunslinger. Together, they step through a portal, setting off on a new adventure, ready to save as many lives as possible. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.